you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today it's going to be the update to the Off Balance build. This is the Magicka Templar for the Dragonhold DLC. Now the purpose of this build is to be able to do decent single target damage, actually quite high, as well as good area of effect. In fact, a lot of area of effect. But above all, this is about supplying off balance to the targets that you're up against so that your group can do more damage and sustain more. Now, off balance is something that lots and lots of people try to manipulate within their group compositions as much as possible, with loads and loads of different people doing really awkward jobs. This does it all for you. But there is a twist to this update's setup, where people can sustain even more. I'm not going to spoil it just yet. We're going to have to wait until we get into the video, but of course, that is coming, so stay with me. Now, first of all, we're going to go into the stats, make sure I've got all our buffs on. We are on 38k max Magicka, 18k max health, and 10k max stamina with 693 mag recovery. We are on almost 3k spell damage, but it does go up a lot more than that once our glyph kicks off and we get our buffs and bonuses. And of course, our resistances are massive, sitting on 22k spell resistance and 17.5k physical, if you use this skill, but that will be explained in the skill section. As you can see, our health is really, really high, despite the fact we've got 64 points into max Magicka. That is because we're using flat food. We are a stage 4 vampire, we are using the Shadow Mundus stone, and this food, although it doesn't show in our stats properly there, it's a bit buggy, actually gives us 5.3k max health and 4.9k max magic. We are not using recovery food. We do not need it. Our setup has so much sustain, you won't need recovery food. But if you choose to, that's your choice. Now I'm going to go into the skills in detail. I'm going to explain where they all come from, what morphs to take, why we're using them, all that good stuff. And of course, if you understand where we're going with this and you follow the information, you will eventually come to the resolve at the end where everything makes a bit more sense. But you're welcome to skip this part if you prefer. However, if you do skip this, you are at risk of missing out on information, especially explanations to certain skills and applications of them, which means, of course, if you ask questions in the comment section that have already been answered, I won't be answering those. Skip at your own risk, but the choice is yours. So first one, here we go. Purifying Light. Dawn's Wrath ability, third ability unlocked, starts off as Backlash, morph it to Purifying Light. Now this will put a light on the target, initially hitting with direct damage, and it will last 6 seconds. During this time, all the damage that you do to the target will be counted up, and 20% of it will be released after the 6 seconds is up. And this has been changed, because this never used to be able to crit. Now it can. Now it's very simple. All you need to do is activate this. Ignore the lightning. Some of you may know what that is. And when it's gone, it will pop. And as you can see here, there's a heal around his feet. And this will actually heal you every 2 seconds. And your group as well, as you can see there, 3.5k crits without being buffed. Now, it's very, very simple. You saw me apply it, you saw it pop. If you do damage in between, the pop will be stronger, and when it does run out, everyone will heal for 6 seconds. That heal is very, very strong and very beneficial not only for other people but for you, because you are in a melee position and you are going to get hit the most. So it really, really helps. So keep this in your rotation the whole time. Next up is Barb Trap. This is in the Fighters Guild skill line. This is the 4th ability you unlock. Starts off as Trap Beast, morph it to Barb Trap. This does do physical damage. It's not really what we want it for. We want it for the minor force. Now, yes, there are some other ways to get minor force, whether it be buffs from other people, from Twilight, from Guard, or perhaps even if you're using Race Against Time or Channeled Acceleration, you can get it other ways. But relying on a buff is up to you, depends on your group composition. Relying on a magical morph of this, or version of this particular bonus, is tricky because you will have to then rework your sustain. But because this is stamina, this doesn't affect our actual rotation, and our race passives give us some of this back. So basically, all you need to do is put this on the ground. It will do damage to the target. It'll be relatively low because it's physical, but this will give us minor force the whole time, increasing all of our crit damage that we do by 10%. That's a very important buff. There's many different ways to get it, but for us, this is the most efficient way to get this, rather than messing with our sustain or just relying on somebody else giving it to us. But situations obviously can change, so it's entirely up to you whether you take it or not. But I would highly recommend this. All you've got to do is keep it up once every 18 seconds. So every rotation, this will be put down, and we'll have that buff forever. Now next up is Radiant Oppression. This is in our Dawn's Wrath skill line. 5th ability to unlock. Starts off as Radiant Destruction, morph it to Radiant Oppression. There's 2 morphs to this. The choice is up to you. One morph will actually heal you, Radiant Glory. If you do damage. Every tick will do damage, of course, and heal you for 20% of the damage done, which is extremely helpful in execute situations and especially strong in VMA. But if you're more than comfortable with your sustain and you're not struggling, then you want to use this one. This one will deal more damage, up to 20% more damage in fact, on a condition. And this is misread a lot. The condition is the percentage of magic you have left in your bar will contribute to up to 20% damage. So the more magic left in your bar, the stronger this will be. The less you've got, the less effective that bonus will be. So if you are struggling with sustain and at execute, most people are actually, but at execute, if you are low magic, this morph is no good for you. You want to use the other one, you'll benefit more from it anyway because you'll heal. And the damage will still be fine. But if you're really good with your sustain and you always have really high Magicka, we're talking maybe 70% plus, maybe even 50% plus, but keeping that consistent, then this one will do more damage. The choice is yours, however. If you're hovering around sort of the 20-30% mark at most execute phases, the difference is minimal. You probably won't even see any. And also, there's a very, very important point to this. This is called a Jesus beam, by the way, for a reason. There's a beam. How cool is that? Now, this says 50% health and lower. This is an execute. So you don't want to use this all the time. You only want to use it when they're low health. But 50% is not when you really want to be using it. If you're in trash pools, any trash, even if they're elite types, if you want to call them that, or champions, I don't know what you want to call them. It's up to you. But the big guys, those want to be hit at about 40% health. Bosses, however, you want to start hitting them about 35, maybe even 30, and then onwards. If you start using this too early, it will do less than your spammable, which is coming next, by the way. Puncture and Sweeps is in our Adric Spear skill line. That's really hard to say really quickly. Starts off as Puncture and Strikes, morph it to Puncture and Sweeps. Say that 10 times really fast. Now, what this will do is very simple. Stab, 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 stab. And that will hit multiple targets. All of these will be actually hit by it. Now, this says damage in front of you. So the first target being hit will be hit the most, and every other target will be hit, obviously less, but they will still take damage. Now, how this looks is pretty simple. Jab, 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 jab. Everyone gets hit. So not only is it single target, but it is area of effect as well. And that's very important when it comes to our passives for our choice of weapon. Now, this also does remove their ability to run really, really fast because it adds a snare to them. But that's not that important. That's mostly for PvP. And PvE, your tank should be controlling the ads anyway. But another big bonus to this is every single target you hit will heal you for 40% of the damage done. So the damage you do per target can contribute to a heal for you. So if we do this again, you should see some green numbers popping up. All those heals. Very, very helpful. So while stabbing everything in the face with your spammable, you heal. So your heal from this will contribute to your survivability, your heal from your jabs, and if you choose to heal and morph of your Jesus beam, that will also during execute while you're not using this. So you can see here that our offensive skills are actually keeping us alive. So it's a very aggressive kind of setup. You've got to keep hitting stuff. Next up is Inner Light. Now, of course, this is in a Mage's Guild skill line. This is only here for passives. You do not need to activate this. While it's on your bar, you will be given Major Prophecy, which is a buff type. They don't stack, so this is yours with you all the time as long as you're on this bar. And this will give you basically a 10% increase to crit chance. And at the same time, you will gain a further 5% increase to max magic, just for being on your bar. It does have an active effect that is useful in PvP, and there's a Major Skill passive as well, which we're not going to really utilize. But this is just here for stats. Leave it there. Next up is, of course, Ice Comet. This is in the Mage's Guild skill line as well. You don't have to have this, but if you do, it's going to benefit you for the passives alone. We never use this ultimate unless the target is almost dead and we don't have enough for our back ultimate. You need Mage's Guild 10 to unlock this. It's just for passives. Or in an oh shit situation where something's nearly going to die. Back bar, of course. Harness Magicka. Now, this is in our light armor skill line. We are using 5 light pieces, which means we can have access to this skill, if I can find it. There we go. Starts off as annulment, morph it to Harness Magicka. This is very, very simple. It is capped at your max health amount, so the higher your health, obviously, the higher the shield can go, depending on whether you've got enough Magicka to boost it or not, which we do. But that will shield your health bar and protect you from damage. Very simple. If you take magic damage in the shield, not only will it protect you from that particular hit, but it will also give you magic back as well, as long as it doesn't completely nuke it. If it doesn't completely nuke it and you get hit by multiple hits, you can actually be hit 3 times, and it'll give you magic back each time you get hit. But this is also affected by the amount of light armor pieces you wear. The bonus restore is, anyway. This does show a 9k damage shield, but you'll see here, if we get some more health from minor toughness, you will see that, of course, our damage shield will, in fact, go up. So it's stronger. The more health you have, the better. But we've got a very healthy amount of health anyway. Once you've got Ebon and minor toughness in your group, you're looking at about 10k damage shield. So use that to save yourself when you're in trouble. Usually what I tend to do is put on the damage shield and then try and heal with damage from underneath it. Now, we are using, of course, Unstable Wall of Elements. This is a Destruction Staff skill line. Second ability you unlock. Starts off as Wall of Elements, morph it to Unstable Wall of Elements. Now, previously, we were using Elemental Blockade, which does have a much, much longer duration. But this did get increased in terms of its duration, again, with this update. So, instead of lasting 8 seconds and our rotation being really, really awkward, this actually lasts 10. All you have to do is put this on the ground. Anything inside of here will take damage. And then after 10 seconds, it will explode. And everyone inside of this will take even more damage. This needs to be up 100% of the time, as much as you possibly can. So 100% is great, but if it's 90, it's not the end of the world. If it's 50, you're doing something seriously wrong. This is one of our most important skills to the entire build for its purpose. Now, why is that important? Because anything that is caught in a lightning wall of elements, we're using a lightning staff, will have a chance to concuss enemies, because lightning damage can concuss your enemies. Concussion is minor vulnerability as well. Minor vulnerability will increase the damage that everybody does to that target by 8%. So it's a free minor vulnerability just by a status chance for doing lightning damage. This wall itself has an extra bonus. Lightning damage that turns into concussion will be turned into off balance inside this particular wall of elements. So you do have to have some stacking effects first. You have to apply concussion first. Once you have, you will get off balance. Off balance lasts for 7 seconds, and on bosses and larger enemies, it has a 15-second immunity phase. During off balance, if you have a set amount of points into your champion points areas, which I'll get to later, you will do more damage to them. Additionally, at base, everybody that heavy attacks that target will get double resources back, whether it be stamina or magicka, whichever one of the weapon types they're using. And that particular heavy attack will also be increased by 70%, damage-wise. So just bear that in mind when it comes to the off-balance rules, how they actually apply and what they do and how you need to make that happen. Concussion needs to be applied first, then Lightning Wall of Elements. Now, another thing to note about off-balance is if the target can be stunned, CC'd, chained, or anything like that, if you heavy attack one of those targets, you will knock them down and stun them, and the off-balance will go away. You will still get the resource back, and you will still benefit from that bonus overall. If it's a big boss or a big enemy, like I just said, there's an immunity phase. Your heavy attack will not get rid of that off balance, and everyone can benefit from the same target. So just bear that in mind. Trash that can be CC'd, you'll consume it and knock them down. Anything that can't be CC'd, you won't consume it and it'll last its full duration. That's very, very important. This particular skill is our bread and butter to this overall setup, and there's more to add to it as well. Keep that down all the time. There's more to come with passives. Next up is Solar Barrage. This is in our Dawn's Wrath skill line as well as our Jesus Beam. This is the second ability you unlock. Starts off as Solar Flare, morph it to Solar Barrage. This is really, really simple yet very effective. Activate it and it does this. Pulses every 2 seconds for a total of 10 seconds. So 5 hits. It counts as damage over time, and of course we are granted Empower. So while this is active, all of our light attacks will do an additional 40% extra damage. That is incredibly strong. You must keep up your light attacks. It's very, very important that you do so, and very important you keep this skill up at all times, including execute. Keep this up. And also, this here, as you can see, is uncapped. Area of effect. Very, very important skill. Really important for our passives as well. Don't let that drop. Now, Channeled Focus is a choice. We technically don't need this for recovery, but you can use it if you want to. Fifth ability down in the Restoring Light skill line. Starts off as Rune Focus, morph it to Channeling Focus. This is disgusting. Put it on the ground, gives us a resistance bonus and recovery, but with a little perk to it. This will give you 5280 physical and spell resist, Major Resolve, which is a buff type. They don't stack. If you get another one, this is yours. You don't get the other one as well. But this can be improved by 50%. So while standing in it, you get an increase. So if we look at our stats now, 19.4k resistances with 14.9. Stand in it, 22 and 17.5. That is very, very high from Magicka DPS. Our resistances are awesome. And of course, you've got one more extra bonus, like I said, with the recovery. While you have this active, whether you're standing inside of it or not, you will get 240 mag recovery back every 1 second. Our recovery is calculated every 2 seconds, so this effectively is 480 recovery on top of our 893, I think it was, or 895 with the potion. 863 even. So you have to consider that we're over 1,200 recovery flat out. That's not including some other shiny bonuses that we will get to in a moment. But if you're not struggling and you are taking advantage of your heavy attacks during off balance and your sustain is really, really good and you don't need the resistances, you can swap this out. And you can basically just put on Inner Light, which means you'll get this bonus on both bars. Now, next up, of course, is Blazing Spear. This is a damage over time ability that is cast on the ground. It will hit initially, of course, and do damage every 1 second. But if anyone picks this up as a synergy, they will get 3960 Magicka back or stamina back, depending on whichever one is higher. Now, here's the bonus to this. Not only is it really, really good for doing damage, but where is our position? We are in the boss's face all the time, or in the boss's back even, while the tank is over here in the boss's face. So your tank doesn't need to start screaming at healers for spears and such because you are supplying them every rotation. And on cooldown, other people will be able to pick it up and so on and so forth. You are actually supplying a very nice sustain synergy for your group and it doesn't mess your build up at all. So it's really, really helpful. Where this comes from, by the way, is the Adric Spear skill line. It's the 4th ability to unlock. Starts off as Spear Shards, morph it as Blazing Spear. Very, very important skill. Don't let this run out. Finally, of course, our ultimate, Thunderous Rage. This is in a Destruction Staff skill line. You want to morph this from Elemental Storm to Elemental Rage, not the other one because the other one's attached to you and does less damage. Now, this will do different damage depending on which element you're using. Of course, if you use Fire, this will do 15% more damage. If you use Ice, then it will immobilize the enemies that hit, which is something we don't want to do. We don't want an Ice Staff on this build because of our passives. And if you're using Lightning, you will get an increased 2-second timer on it. So instead of lasting 7 seconds, I was actually last 9. Now, we're using this, of course, to get as much lightning damage as possible, to get more concussion, so that we can use off balance with this, to then buff the group, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. As far as gear is concerned, lightning versus flame, we'll get to that in a moment, after the passives. Now, you do need level 50 in Destruction Stuff to get that, by the way. That is our main ultimate. We are going to be using that above all, not the Ice Comet. So, Thunderous Rage as much as you possibly can. It's massive in ad pulls. It does a stupid amount of damage. Everything inside of here can be concussed, knocked off balance, and basically nuked. Keep this up inside this, and with this dot running. Everything needs to be inside this area of effect. As you can see, there's a bit of a theme going on here where everything is area of effect damage. Mostly, anyway. Except for your Jesus Beam. Now, we're going to go into passives. Adric Spear, first of all. This will increase your critical damage by 10% and increases your damage done to blocking targets by 10% if an Adric Spear ability is slotted. So, we have a 10% increase to crit damage alongside of our Beast Trap, by the way, which stacks. This is an Adric Spear ability, and so is this. So, both bars get that crit bonus. Very, very helpful. When you apply or activate an Adric Spear ability, you will get minor protection for 6 seconds, reducing the damage you take by 8%. Remember, we've got really good resistances, and remember, of course, we heal off of our offensive skills. Well, also, if we use our offensive skill that heals us, we have minor protection. Now, that's really nice on the front bar, isn't it? But what do we do on the back? Well, first of all, it carries over, or what if it runs out? Well, in our rotation on the back bar as well, we also have an Adric Spear ability, which reapplies it. So you spam on the front with these, and you use this on the back, and you have 100% uptime on minor protection for yourself. Disgusting. Very, very tanky. Templars are really, really strong. When you deal damage with an Adric Spear ability, you have a 25% chance to deal an additional 1.7k physical or 5k magic damage. That does alter with buffs, by the way. Whichever one of the two is higher. Now, we're spec for magic, of course, so we'll get the magic damage, which is the higher one of the two. And this can happen once every 5 seconds by chance, just by using Adric Spear abilities, or doing damage with them, in fact. This one here can make it happen. Every 0.5 seconds, we can get a free hit. and so can this. So overlap them and have them both running at the same time, and they can both have a chance to make that fire. You're looking for burn and light in your combat metrics, by the way, if you are using that. Now, Balance Warrior, of course, will increase your weapon damage, which is not that important for us. We will benefit from that slightly with the Beast Trap, I guess, but it's not that important. But the spell resistance is. The spell resistance is going to be the reason why, of course, we have higher spell resistance than physical, but most content is actually quite heavy in spell damage output, so this is really beneficial. Not quite as high as the Dragon Knight, but still really good nonetheless. Dawn's Wrath, of course, is incredibly important. Now, this will increase the duration of your Sunfire, Eclipse, Solar Flare, and Nova abilities. That's why this doesn't last 8 seconds, it lasts 10. Why this does as well, but we're not using it. And Nova, of course, this is a choice. If you're in a situation where you need a lot of mitigation for your group, perhaps you are a Trials group and you're struggling in certain mechanics and you need some help surviving, this you can put down instead of your Death Royalty, and you will affect the targets with Major Maim. As well as doing damage and obviously supplying a synergy for the group, which does loads of damage, the targets affected by this ability will actually do 30% less damage. Now, lots of people get this wrong because it was changed quite a while back and people haven't quite adapted to it yet. You don't need to put this on your group to protect them. You need to put it on the target to debuff it. It's a debuff, not a buff as such. This used to have major protection. Now it's Major Maim and has been for quite some time. Just bear in mind, of course, the Warden's Permafrost, which does apply major protection to the group, does stack with this, meaning that the enemies can do less damage and you can take less damage and so on and so forth. You get the idea. They do stack alongside of each other. Damage mitigation is multiplicative, so it's not going to be a flat 30, 30 equals 60, but it will help you nonetheless. Very, very nice indeed. That's a situational skill if your group needs it. But you will benefit from this, of course, if you do. Casting the Dawn's Wrath ability generates 3 ultimate once every 6 seconds. This is going to be used on the front bar. This is going to be used on the back bar. We're going to have 100% uptime on this nice, shiny passive. So every 6 seconds, at least, we are going to get 3 ultimate. Casting the Dawn's Wrath ability grants minus sorcery to you and your group, increasing their spell damage by 10%. So basically, all we have to do is cast this, and we have minus sorcery. 10% increased spell damage. So when I showed you the buffs at the beginning, just with a potion running, and it looked like I had under 3k spell damage, I actually have more. And of course, that can still go up with our gear and our bonuses. Reduces the health, magicka, and stamina cost of ultimates and abilities by 5%. Awesome. We've got really good recovery anyway. Now our sustain is even better because we have cheaper costs. Restore and Light, of course, you're not going to necessarily need all of these, but they are beneficial nonetheless. This one you won't need because we're not actually using any of these abilities that do any healing, so that's irrelevant. When you leave your rune focus for 4 seconds, you will still keep the buffs, but while standing in it, you'll keep the buff the whole time. And that buff that you get from that, apart from being the resistance and the recovery, which isn't on my bar at the moment. Let's put it on. There we go. Is this. Minor Mending. So, as long as you're in this, or if you leave up to 4 seconds afterwards, you can actually lose it and then come back in again. You will have 8% increased healing done. That's very specific. Healing done, not healing received. Healing received is heals that you do to yourself and take, and other people do to you and you take. Healing done is healing that you specifically do, whether it's cast or procced. So this here, the heals from it are increased if you are standing inside this. Your Jesus Beam heals if you choose Radiant Glory, and your Purifying Light is increased also because you actively make those heals happen. So you will get that bonus, which is actually quite helpful. So definitely get that passive. This here is not important to us at all because we're not using any of those skills. And this one, we do res really, really fast. We have a 20% resurrection speed. So if someone goes down, pick them up. You can get them up really, really quickly. They'll have more health because you're a Templar and you will have this passive giving them more health when they get up. And of course, if you've got an empty soul gem, not only will you spend one for the resurrection, but you might actually get one back. Now, Destruction Staff skill line, you want every single one of these. Your fully charged heavy attacks do splash damage. Let's see, shall we? A normal heavy attack will just hit him. Watch this. Everybody gets hit. That is insane. And that means also when this goes down, every single person that is inside of this that is off balance will take more damage. And if you heavy attack an off balance target, you'll do 70% more damage And the damage in splash area of effect is scaled off of the heavy that you are doing to the main target. So, if you heavy attack something that's off balance, all surrounding targets will be hit for 100% damage of that target's intake of damage. So, the higher your buffs towards that, the stronger your area of effect when you do heavy attack them. Very, very strong indeed. So that's a stupidly powerful passive. You must get it. This increases your spell penetration, if you like, or reduces or ignores the spell resistance of a target by 10% for destruction staff skills, including Wall of Elements, light attacks, and heavy attacks, and your Destro Staff ulti. So very good in AoE situations when not all the buffs are there. Increases your chance to apply burn and concussion and chilled status effects by 100%. This is really important. This increases your chance by an additional 100% of the base chance to apply concussion, which obviously encourages off balance. Now, if you don't have a destruction staff equipped, you will lose this passive. We have one on both bars, so no matter what bar we're on, we never lose it. If you are someone that is perhaps a healer or a tank and you are trying to supply off balance, if you don't have a destro staff equipped at the time, so for example you're on your resto bar or you're on a sword and board bar, you will lose this passive. So you're not going to be that effective. However, if you are using an ice staffed tank with, and your back bar is a lightning staff, yes, of course you will lose the block passive, so for God's sake do not block on that lightning staff. But when you swap to the front, you will still keep the passives because this is a destruction staff based passive alone. So just consider that when you're trying to be that effective one and you're throwing out lightning walls from a staff and then switching to the front with a different weapon, you lost your additional chance to increase that bonus. It's very, very important to know. Now, when you have a lightning staff equipped, again, your area of effect damage will go up by 8%. Now, very important. This is area of effect. This is area of effect. So is this. So is our Destro ulti. So is this. And so is our heavy attack splash damage. Our main bread and butter skills are all contributing to that bonus. Now, if you have a flame staff instead, you will get more direct damage in terms of single target damage. So this will go down. That will go down. This will go down. That will go down also. The only thing you'll benefit from is your power of the light will go up slightly. Your Jesus beam will go slightly up at execute. And your light attacks will be slightly stronger. But the amount of area of effect damage you lose and the freedom you lose to get this off balance bonus here with all this massive splash damage from light and heavy attacks is gone. You will just wind up a very, very long, slow, heavy attack, and it's luck whether you will crit or not. And if you don't, you're going to feel really deflated. So you can use a flame staff if you prefer, just if you want 1k DPS extra execute, but just consider what you're going to lose if you do. Of course, if you do kill an enemy with a destruction staff ability that includes your light and heavy attacks, you will regenerate 3,600 Magicka for each kill. You'll just get it back. That is ridiculous. So sometimes it's a choice of whether you want to finish it off with a Jesus beam or whether you want to finish it off with an actual heavy attack. Because one will cost magic and one will give it back. So just bear that in mind. Light armor, of course, we're using 5 pieces. This will increase your effectiveness versus snares, basically. So you are not as slow if you get affected by them. And reduce the cost of sprint because we are quite slow and we don't have a lot of stamina. This will increase your mag recovery per piece worn and reduce the cost of your abilities by each piece worn as well. This will increase your spell resistance for each piece worn. This requires 5 pieces but gives you a 10% crit bonus. And this will give you 4884 spell penetration. Our spell pen is very, very high because of this passive here. We really don't struggle with passives and bonuses and champion points with this kind of bonus. It's ridiculous. So make sure you get this as soon as possible. Obviously, targets in PVE have 18,200 resistances. This straight away ignores 4,884 of them. Very, very strong indeed. Medium armor we're using 1 piece. So the weapon crit bonus is not that important, although it will contribute to your beast trap slightly, so it's up to you if you get this. But for 1 piece, you'll get that bonus. We do want Windwalker to increase our stamina recovery and reduction to cost, because we are using a stamina ability here. We want to get it cheaper. We want the recovery up so we can block, dodge roll, and all that good stuff. Sneak bonus is not that important, but you can get it if you want. Agility is never going to help you because you need 5 pieces. And this here will increase your movement speed while sprinting, which, remember, we do have a reduction to cost for that. And will reduce your dodge roll cost, which again is very small, but it is beneficial nonetheless. We're using 3 passives here. Not these 2, because they need 5 pieces. But these first 3, we do need them because they're going to benefit us from the 1 piece of heavy that we're wearing. This will increase your physical and spell resistance. This will give you resources back while you're taking damage. We've only got 1 piece for this, but it does still count nonetheless. And this will increase our health by 2%, which is also very, very important because it stacks with all our passives and bonuses and food and all that good stuff. We are a stage 4 vampire, of course. Stage 2 or above will give you this passive, which will allow you to have 10% increased mag and stamina recovery. And stage 3 or above will allow you to have the undeath passive, which means while under 50% health, you take less damage. Fighter's Guild, of course, you will need a couple of these. Intimidating Presence will get the cost down of Beast Trap, so get that. You will benefit from this, but not massively, so you don't have to get this passive if you don't want to, but our Beast Trap will be a little bit stronger because of the 3% increase for having it on our bar in terms of weapon damage output. We do have weapon damage in our passive as well, so you're not going to be at a loss for buying this passive, but it's not necessary if you're trying to skimp out on skill points. This is important, however. You generate 9 ultimate for every single kill you get if they are undead, Daedra, or werewolf. You are going to get a lot of kills. You are built for AoE and have really good single target as well. Everything's going to be dead. You're probably going to be the one that kills it, and you're going to get loads of ulti back for the privilege of doing so, which means you can spam your Destroy ulti more often and wreck more stuff. Get this passive. This also, by the way, is very, very minimal, but your Beast Trap will do more damage to undead, Daedra, or werewolves. So if you want to get that and you've got the spare points, go for it. Mage's Guild, of course, you will want a couple of these. Mostly this one, in fact. This increases your maximum magic and mag recovery by 2% for each Mage's Guild ability slotted. This is 1. Yes, it's got 5%, but it's got another 2. And this is why this is here for passives. Originally, we didn't really go over this because we're going passives in a different section, but this is here for an additional 2% increase as well. And on the back bar, we don't have anything for that unless you swap this out for Inner Light, if you double bar it, which means you will have a 7% bonus on this bar as well. Not 5, 7, because of the 2% bonus here. The rest of them are not that important because we're not really actively using them, but if you want these passives, just in case you do fire off one of the abilities or you use your Meteor, for example, you will get duration increases and all that good stuff as well. But essentially, you want this. Now, this will give you 4% resources back for every single synergy you take. Take the synergies. I can't stress that enough. I see so many synergies up on people's screens when I'm watching other people's videos and streams and all that good stuff, and they're not taking the synergies. What on earth is the point in learning to take a spear on this dummy every 20 seconds with perfect cooldown for perfect cheesy rotations if you don't take the bloody synergies? Take them. If a tank in your group, especially if you're this build, is struggling with resources, you're the one that throws a bloody spear, and look, you can't take it. He's got no excuse, and you've got no excuse to not take the synergies in the first place. Take them. They will give you resources back. Now, if you also use lots of different armor types, which we are, you will get a bonus of 2% across the board for magic, health, and stamina for each individual type. There are 3 types, we're getting 6%. Take this passive as well. Now, we aren't using anything in here. We are, of course, a high elf. You don't have to be, but it's very, very beneficial if you are. Now, this is important. This will give you 640 magic or stamina back based on whichever one is lowest, if you use a class ability. And while channeling, you take less damage. So, that's channeling, and we take less damage while using it. So is your Jesus Beam. Also, while we use stamina, which is our lowest pool, if we use a class ability, we get stamina back. Now, of course, we have 2k max magic and 258 spell damage. We've got some very good flat bonuses. No resource gain except for our lowest bar, but we have some very high flat bonuses. But our recovery or resource gain or sustain for this particular build, again, once I get to the gear, will make a lot more sense. This is very, very high sustain indeed, regardless of all these flat bonuses. Now, this is the most important passive in the game, in my opinion. Medicinal use. I've gone over this for the last 3 years, and it's took that long for people to finally start paying attention to it. You're welcome. 30% increase on your potions. Now, if you're using a crafted potion, which I personally am, spell damage in the form of major sorcery, major prophecy, in case I don't have inner light on both bars, for 10% crit increase, and major intellect, giving me a 20% increased recovery to magic. Those potions should last 35-36 seconds. With this passive, they last 47. Our cooldown is 45, which means we can use it 100% of the time. Never use a potion just because you're low. Use a potion all the time and benefit for it the whole duration. Okay, now I'm going to go into the gear. No trial loot required. Unless you want to. This is similar to what it was before, but there's a bit of a twist. Now, before, when people used Overwhelming, it made a lot of sense to be on the body, because otherwise there would be down times. And there still are if you use the staff. But based on one of the other sets we're using, it was actually overperforming to have it on the staff versus the other set being on cooldown instead. That's going to make more sense when we get to it, but first of all, we're going to go into this particular one. Overwhelming Lightning Staff on the front bar. Front bar only, unless you don't have a Maelstrom weapon. If you don't have a Maelstrom weapon, you can double bar this, because then you won't have any gaps. But we're allowing for the gaps based on the second set. Now, this will give you an increased magic, spell damage, and if you use a class ability and do damage with it, you will basically zap 6 targets in front of you every second. And 15% of the damage done will be returned to you in the form of Magicka. Single target, obviously 1 target will give you magic back. Area of effect up to 6. That's absolutely broken. Now, I'm going to demonstrate that in a moment, because if I do try and demonstrate that now, one of my other sets is going to proc, and I don't want to spoil it, so we're going to get straight to that instead. Note, by the way, 3 jewelry and 1 weapon. The Maelstrom Lightning Staff on the back on purpose, so that our Wall of Elements will be boosting our light and heavy attacks, which, yes, means during off-balance phases, we will actually have much heightened heavy attacks, meaning much, much bigger splash damage. So make sure you keep that Wall of Elements up. This is essential not just for the build, but also for this particular weapon. Remember, Lightning Staff on the front, jewelry, or 3 pieces of armor. Just remember, by the way, you can double bar this if you don't have a Maelstrom weapon, or if you prefer, you can go willpower. Now, the second set, Hollow Fang. This also can be farmed on normal. So you can get this on normal, you can get this on normal. This will give you spell crit, maximum Magicka, spell crit again, 2 really nice crit bonuses. And whenever you critically heal or critically damage a target, so either one, heal or damage, you will spawn a ball, the red ball of hemoglobin that comes out of Moongrave Fane, which is where this comes from actually. And after 2 seconds, it will explode, restoring 3k Magicka to you and other allies. And you'll be granted Minor Vitality. Minor Vitality is healing received, 8% of it. Minor Mending is healing done. They stack. While you're doing your damage, you get a healing buff, which gives you magic back while spending magic while healing yourself by doing damage. Does that make sense? You hit stuff, you proc this, you heal off your hits, your heals get increased, your magic comes back. This is disgusting. And this benefits everyone caught inside of it. And this can happen once every 9 seconds. It lasts for 9 seconds and can be reapplied again after 9 seconds. You can have 100% uptime on Minor Vitality for you and your group, and get 3k magic back every 9 seconds. As well as this giving you magic back every 1 second for doing damage. So the reason now that this is on the front bar only, if you have a Maelstrom weapon, double barred if not, the reason it's on the front bar only is because we don't want to have any downtime on this. This is stupid sustain, stupid healing bonuses. It's really, really strong. Just put it on the body and you're all good. Unless you want 3 jewelry or a jewelry piece and then 2 body pieces and then body, overwhelming, and 1 weapon here. It's up to you whatever order you put it in, but you want to make sure this is on you 100% of the time. And we're going to show you what this looks like. Very simple. I need to crit heal or crit damage. There it goes. Pop. Gives you loads of magic back and gives you Minor Vitality. Now, if we put it all together, this is what happens when you hit multiple targets. You basically can't run out of juice, because we're going to hit this. Every zap that I'm doing, which you can see the zaps, there, they give me magic back. And that ball gives me magic back. I cannot run out of juice. Now, I know people would say, oh, well, that's multiple targets. That doesn't really count. Okay, well, we'll do it over here. Just bear in mind, of course, by the way, we are using max health, max magic food, flat stuff. So we'll hit this too. I'm not going to pick that spear up. I'm just going to keep hitting him. Good luck. That's without heavy attack and without picking up the spear and without any other synergies. Obviously, that's just one spammable going over and over and over, but I'm going to be using a skill all the time. I'm always going to be casting something, keeping potions up and all that good stuff. It's going to be mental. And it is. So, you can change this set if you prefer. You can, of course, go with Sororia. There is a difference in overall damage output, but your sustain will be hit quite hard. So, that is a choice. But if you want to go just this gear, no dungeon, no trial stuff at all, this is solid. Flat out, the highest this actually hit, the highest single target on the dummy, bearing in mind that it's a bit skewed and there's buffs and bonuses missing, so it's not completely accurate. This could hit 75k. Single target. Not including AoE, because your AoE is huge. With Sororia, it was closer to 80, but your sustain sucked. So the choice is yours. But also, we have a monster set choice. We have Zan, which of course gives us a crit bonus, and you saw the Flame Breath a little while ago. This one here. See if we can make it happen. Come on. There you go. That is very, very strong. Does damage every 1 second, and every 1 second it gets 50% stronger than the last tick. With a pretty hefty cooldown. So, it lasts for 5 seconds with a 13-second gap. So, 18 seconds overall from start to reapply again. But if you don't like that, and most of the time you don't really get that much use out of it, because it can hit and miss. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's not. Grofdar is another way to go. In fact, I preference this. Not only does it give you a max magic bonus, and make a flaming circle around you that does loads and loads of damage in area of effect, which does get stronger with your lightning staff, but that fires off of all damage types, not just lights and heavies. That fires off of all. So all you need to do is do some form of damage and you get this. And as you can see here, this is also area of effect. It's pretty hefty. So if you've got these dots running and all that good stuff, and everything's up and running at once, you've got a lot of AoE. Your single target is respectable enough to be able to do everything, and your AoE is more than enough to contribute to the entire group. Not only that, you're supplying off balance, synergies, extra damage output, and more recovery. You are a DPS that is supplying debuffs, bonuses, healing buffs, and sustain all at once while doing your job. You're not losing anything. So, set choices, of course, are up to you. You can stick with Zan if you want to go more single target, or you can stay with Grofdar. It can actually be very, very much the same, depending on your proc chance, and have more AoE. It's up to you. But one more thing you can do is you can change your lightning staff to a flame staff if you prefer. That's based on situation. If you are in a group that has an abundance of off balance and you don't need to be the one pumping out off balance shapes, then change to a flame staff. You will get a bit more damage out of it on the back bar, not the front. And that will mean your death royalty is stronger, your wall of elements is stronger. That's the only thing I would change. Apart from that, most situations you're not going to have that abundance of off balance anyway, not unless you're up against a couple of easy sorks or maybe another one of these beside you. Stick with the lightning. Very, very strong indeed. Weapon and spell damage on the front, shock on there, all divines, all magicka, 1 infused, 2 bloodthirsty. Now, going to go into the champion points real quick, then I'm going to show you the rotation. This is the same as pretty much every other setup I have. Very, very good across the board, but you can change this if you prefer, depending on the content. 72 points into Ironclad for a 23% reduction to income and direct damage. 64 and 64 for 13% across the board for all damage types. And 19%, 51 points in fact, into Thick Skin to reduce dot damage. Just remember, of course, the Unchained passive. If you do break free, your next stamina ability is cheaper by 80%. We have one stamina ability. Break free, put a beast trap down. 90 points in crit recovery to increase our healing received. We are healing all the time when we do damage. This will make it stronger. And of course, we have the Field Physician passive. We are the fastest reser on the field. Said this before in Temper videos. We have a 20% increase to res speed. While resin, you take less damage. 44 points into Warlord to reduce the cost of break free. 75 in Tenacity to increase our return from heavy attacks. That does stack with off balance, by the way. And also increases our mag recovery. 72 into Tumbling to reduce the cost of dodge roll. And, of course, we've got 4 points left here. We haven't really got anything we can do with them, so I stuck them all in here for 1% block cost reduction while we still obtain the Treasure Hunter passive, which means when we loot stuff, you will get higher quality loot from chests. While farming, that's very, very useful. 61 points into Elfborn to increase our crit damage. 64 into Elemental Expert to increase all of our damage, except for our Beast Trap, of course. 10 into Spell Erosion to give us our Spell Pen that we need to be able to hit everything on the nose if all buffs and bonuses are applied. 9 points into Staff Expert to increase our light and heavy attacks, and 51 into Master at Arms. Puncture and Sweeps now benefits from direct damage bonuses, not damage over time. So that's very, very important, and this is why we have so much Master at Arms points. And of course, our light attacks are direct as well, which this does scale off of. So that's also very helpful, especially since we have Empower on our light attacks. 75 points into Firmitage to increase all of our damage over time by 23%. The reason we've got 75 points in here going over the decimal point is because then we've got the Exploiter passive, which means if anything is off balance, and it will be, we get 10% increased damage. Now, this is going to be quite straightforward. Beast Trap on the ground. Rune Focus down if you need it. If you need it. You might not. Our food ran out, but that's not really important. So, Beast Trap down, resist buff on. First thing you want to do, Spear. Light attack, Solar Barrage. Light attack again, Wall of Elements, swap bars. So 3 skills, very simple. 1, light attack, 2, light attack, 3, swap. Always light attack between your skills. Front bar, light attack, Purifying Light. Make sure that's on the target. Once it is, you do this, light attack, jabs, 3 times. Then, light attack, Beast Trap, swap. And that's it. Now, the only thing you need to pay attention to is off balance, of course. So look at the target dummy, the far left-hand side, there's a guy standing there. That's immunity. Once it's gone, he can go off balance again. Now look carefully. See the blue one on the far left-hand side now. That is what you're looking for. 7 seconds up, 15 seconds down. As soon as you see that, your damage just went up, your heavy attacks will return double resources, and you will obviously need to take advantage of that if your resources are low. So you don't want a heavy attack if you can help it, unless there's a big ad pull and you want to knock everything down, or unless you want to do loads of area effect damage, in fact. You don't want a heavy attack unless this is up. When it is, that's when you want to be doing it. Now here's the difference. We'll put Wall of Elements down and heavy attack. Our heavy attacks are hitting about 10k. Now we'll do it again with off balance running. 16. And that's not fully buffed either. There are some buffs running, but I don't have Minor Force running. I haven't got all my shinies procced and everything at the moment. You see the difference. There's a 6k increase there just from off balance alone. With this particular setup, you're talking 20k plus excluding execute, heavy attacks, maybe up to 29 at execute. That does contribute to area of effect as well. So the higher the damage on this target, the more damage they take. And as you can see, that healing recovery orb thing is firing all the time. If you're in a stack up, by the way, everyone around you will get that. Everyone's getting a healing bonus, everyone's getting recovery, including the tank. Now, just to recap over the rotation very quickly. Light Spear, Light Solar, Light Wall swap. Light Power, or Purify even. Light Jabs, 3 times. Beast Trap swap. Doesn't get any simpler than that. Now, if you're struggling for sustain and you do want to keep this up, every second rotation, simply Spear, Light Solar, Light Rune, Light Wall swap. Sneak that in once every second rotation. You'll never run out of juice. You don't actually need it if you can keep on top of your rotation anyway. But if you do find that you're struggling, if you do feel squishy, put this in. I'll demonstrate what this looks like on a dummy. Very simple. And just don't ever change it. The only time you ever need to change it is if you need to heavy attack during an off balance phase, in which case remove 1 stab and replace it with this. Now, during execute, the only thing you need to do is keep this up, keep this up, and keep this up. Your front bar, light attack Jesus Beam, 3 times. And then Beast Trap swap bars, reapply your dots, Light attack, 3 Jesus beams. That's it. Rinse, repeat. Very simple. So here's a couple of screenshots showing a couple of demonstrations. Not best case scenario, of course, but a reasonable amount of damage. With a couple of different variations of the setup. They can go much, much higher depending on the situation at the time, depending on what buffs and bonuses are there. Just remember, not all buffs are on the dummies. Soroya will obviously make you struggle with sustain, so you can go 75-80, whereas the other one, Lucky Crits, will put you anywhere between 72-ish to 75. So thank you all very much for watching. I hugely appreciate support. If you are not subscribed, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want help support otherwise, there are links in the description for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, the website xynodegaming.com, and there's a new membership system on YouTube now. If you hit the join button, you'll see what options there are. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.